Welcome back to my latest update, and this time it will be a continuation of a project I started back in update 45. You may recall I bought this Kibri kit and I started building it, but I was going to make modifications to it, mainly because the beamwork that is in the kit, or the lack of it I should say, uh, wasn't what I wanted. And in that video, I was using thin strips of styrene to recreate the wooden beam effect. Uh, and I'd parked that project while I continue with the landscape work that I've been doing recently. But recently I've come back to this. And as you can see, I've started now to put in the diagonal beams, which I hadn't started in the previous video. This requires a bit more work and a lot of patience to cut the beams so that they fit in the right places. And what I've also done after that is I've used plastic putty to fill in the panels and to give it a bit of texture uh, so that once it's painted it will look like the real thing, so to speak. I've also here started to mask up all the windows because this will be painted uh, in the end. Now you may ask why mask it up just now. When I finish the model, I'm going to give it a coat of varnish, matte varnish, to hide any shiny pieces that I've painted. Uh, Usually these come from the dirt washes that I apply, so I might as well do this right at the start and protect the plastic windows and keep them shiny while the rest is dull. So as you can see here, the masking has been done and I've given it its base coat of a sort of dark yellow color. The next part is, I think one of the most difficult parts is the painting of the wooden beams. While I was waiting for everything to dry, I built the bottom section, the wooden beams, the framework, and the base of the building. It's not a complaint against the kit. I think I may have mentioned this before, but the fit is not very good. I've had to do a lot of work with plastic putty to fill in gaps, and the same is true of this bottom section. Hopefully I'll be able to correct a lot of this moving forward so that it will turn out eventually to be a reasonable kit. As you can see here, it doesn't lie flat on the bottom section, the top section that is. I will have to probably sand this quite flat so that it will fit. And as you can see, this is the beams all now painted. I didn't film the painting of it because I had to get up very close and use a very fine brush to do this work. So I've just sort of skipped ahead. And here you can see the end result. I've glued it to the bottom section, and the back panel of the building on the ground floor, as you can see there, was rather plain. So I've actually scratched away some of the plaster to create a broken sort of brick effect. And I've actually glued the top section to the bottom section. So that's it sitting there now. And again, this is where the poor fit of this kit is highlighted. The roof sections are all warped, and the little turrets at the front didn't fit perfectly, so I've had to heat up the plastic panels of the roof and bend them slightly to get them into shape. I've done a reasonable job. I've glued them into position and holding it in place with masking tape. Once that is dried, I will have to use again some plastic filler to fill in some of the gaps and try and blend that in. And as you can see, here is the roof section once it's all dried with the filler applied, and trying to So hide the gaps, fill them in. It's mainly the seam at the front where the flat sections of roof join onto the turret sections and the front panel. This small rear panel at the back as well had to be sanded down to fit into that section at the back for it. But overall, there's a little bit of work required, but once it's done, it I think looks quite good. The next bit to do, as you can see here, is paint the sections of roof to hide the filler. And this has been done now. And as you can see, it's not very noticeable at all, the gaps now. I've also applied the small little turret gondola. I'm not sure what you would call this, right at the top of the roof and the chimney. And I've still just got some of the fine detail now to add these brass mountings on the top of the spires, and the gutters need to be done. And once that's all done, then the roof needs to be weathered, and just the base as well. A few bits and pieces done here to give the building an aged look, and then this little project will be complete. And overall, I'm quite pleased with how the painting and the weathering that I've done so far, certainly on the wooden beams, has come out. I've just applied some dark brown washes to the panels, some black washes to the wood, dry brushed with some lighter earth and wooden tones, and this is the end result. And as you can see here, I've removed the masking tape from all the windows, and you can see the final result. Although I did notice, and you'll see this once I turn the building round, I left the masking on the three small dormer windows on the other side, but I did notice that in the end, and it's been removed as well. So overall, pleased with how this kit has turned out. As I mentioned in my previous video, I still don't know where I'm going to put this on the layout. I've got a space for it in the town section, a temporary space. I don't think this is where it will be permanently, but I will keep that there now. The issue I have with that, where I've got it, and you'll see that in a minute here, is you can't see the back of the building. And I want this on the layout somewhere where you can see all around it. And that will probably have to be in a new landscape section that will come in the future. But for the time being, this building is going to sit here, and it sits in quite nicely with the other buildings in this section of the layout. The roof is a little bit more weathered than the other buildings. That's the only real difference. So, for the time being, I'm quite happy with how this looks, and I will keep that there, as I said, until I find a more suitable place to put this. These are just some still pictures of the building in place, so you can see the final effect. And what I've got, my next project, is a little signal box that I'm going to put together, but with a difference. I am going to make this an abandoned signal box. And to do that, I am going to cover up the windows with corrugated iron. And I've created this from thin pieces of tin foil, not your regular tin foil, something that's slightly thicker. Cut them into shape and press them onto a jig that I had to get the wavy effect, and then paint them in various colors. And I will be attaching them to the building, as you can see very shortly. This is where it will be. I mentioned in the previous videos the sort of section at the end of the landscaping area I just completed, that it was missing a building, and this is where this will go. I've already implanted the base of the building, and have started to integrate it into the landscape. And then once that's dry, the building will be placed on top. And here you can see I'm about halfway through the build. I've covered up the ground floor windows and doors with the corrugated iron, and I've weathered them, heavily rusted them. I've also boarded up the doors on this little side building that's attached, and I've replaced the roof of that again with the corrugated iron panels that I've made myself. The piece of roof here that came with the kit was way too uniform, and I just thought this would give the whole building a bit of character. So that's where I am at the moment with this. You can also see the windows on the top section of the signal box have been cut out, and I've made it look as if the panes of glass are all broken. The only thing left to do here now is attach the steps leading up to it, and then attach it to the base. But I'll show that in a later update. That's all for the time being. I hope you've enjoyed this brief video. Sorry there's been no running today. Hopefully I will get back to doing that in the next video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below.